Hi and welcome. I'm ANewz and you're watching Headlines. France has begun pulling its military assets from Chad 2 weeks after the Central African country abruptly terminated a decades-long military cooperation with Paris. On the same day, Senegal also requested the departure of French troops, saying their presence is not compatible with the country's sovereignty. In the past years, the French military also left Burkina Faso, Mali, and Nigeria. This leaves room for other foreign actors, most notably China and Russia, but Turkey as well. On the shift in regional dynamics after the French pullout, waning and increasing influences in Africa, we're talking to Dr. Serhat Orakci, a doctor in African studies, coming to us live from Istanbul. Dr. Serhat, thank you for joining us. Let's start with the erosion of Paris's influence in Africa. What would you say is the reason? Is it a push for sovereignty by former colonies, a general anti-French sentiment, or something else? And who is filling up that space?
Yes, thank you very much. In Africa today, there are a lot of things changing. With the latest developments in the last couple of years, you will see that France military presence, especially in the Sahel region, in West Africa, and in the other Francophone countries, diminished almost, and many countries ask France to pull its military presence from their countries because of their sovereignty concerns. So this is a very basic fact, actually. But of course, there are other foreign actors. They are dealing with African countries, and they are feeling this vacuum, this gap, especially, as you said, Russia and China in the last 10 years. And we can say Turkey is also playing a very important role throughout its diplomatic efforts, trade relations, and even in the security and energy sectors. We can see now Turkey and Turkish companies and Turkey's influence, uh, especially in the Horn of Africa, in West Africa, in Sahel region, and in the northern part of Africa. So this is actually a very important turning point for Africa as well.
Staying on the subject of Turkey, Ankara appears to have become a broker in African affairs, having organized yesterday talks of Somalia and Ethiopia that resulted in a joint declaration to resolve the dispute over the breakaway Somaliland region and landlocked Ethiopia's push for sea access. What do you make of Ankara's moves, and do you expect more?
Yes, this is actually a very important point for Somalia and Ethiopia because these two countries, although they are neighbors, the tension between these two countries escalated in the last 1 year since Ethiopia signed an agreement, a deal with Somaliland region of Somalia. Somaliland is a very problematic region right now because claimed independence from Somalia in the 1991, but not recognized internationally. So Ethiopia's deal with Somaliland actually brought some new questions, and Somali saw this attempt as a threat to its sovereignty in the region. But luckily, Turkey was very influential in the Horn and has good relations with Somalia, and Ethiopia started a talk between these two countries, and it is actually started in July. Yes, the 1st of July in this year. Couple of times the officials from two countries met in Ankara to solve this dispute between them. So finally, at the end, yesterday we saw their two countries' presidents shaking hands in Ankara in front of media and calling a peaceful reconciliation. So this is a very actually important point for two countries and showing the impact of Turkey in the region because, as I said to you, after in the last actually 20 years, Turkey became a very influential actor in many areas, especially, as I said, in the security, in the diplomatic relations, and in trade relations, business relations. And Turkey's invest in the energy sector is also increasing in the continent. So this is actually a very important development for Turkey's Africa policy and for two neighbor countries, Ethiopia and Somalia.
Many say that Turkey's influence in Africa stems from its defense sector. Would you support this argument, given that Turkish drones have been delivered to Chad, Togo, and the Sahel trio, Burkina Faso, Mali, and so on?
Yes, it is correct. Turkey is right now selling defense industry products to some African countries, including Ethiopia, Somalia, Niger, Mali. But I will not limit to the security sector, because Turkey's relations with Africa reconstructed in the last 20 years actually. So we have to look last 2 decades. It is very important. In 2005, this journey started by Turkey. Turkey declared a new African policy. After that, in 2008, for example, Turkey became a strategic partner to African Union. Later, Turkey organized 3 Africa and Turkey summits, and Turkey developed its diplomatic relations in many countries, opened new embassies, also developed its trade relations. Right now, when you look the volume between African countries and Turkey, the trade volume, it almost reached to $40 billion yearly. So, and in the civil society sector also, there are many Turkish NGOs, international NGOs. They are very active in Africa, and they are developing, they are helping, making assistance to develop the human conditions in the continent. As you know, still the African countries, they are suffering because of poverty and some chronic problems. So it is not only limited to security sector. There are many other sectors. You can see the Turkey is leading. As I said to you, in a new development, Turkey start investing in the energy sector, especially in Somalia. Now Turkey's seismic research ship is in Somalia's shores, making some research and some other investments in Somalia in terms of energy, oil and gas discoveries. So I'm not limiting to the defense sector.
With China and Russia, as we mentioned, and now Turkey forming alliances, mediating in the continent, where does that leave the West? What was the mistake of the West, if we can call it that way, when it comes to relations with African countries?
Openly, if I frankly speak, the Western influence in Africa is waning. It is decreasing day by day, and it is very actually right now. You can see by your eyes, as you announced in the news, military presence. For example, France is pulling over its military activities in African countries. The mistake was actually on the relations, because the West never see Africa as a true equal friend or equal partner. So their relation with Africa was always hegemonic. So they wanted to dominate Africa, African sources. They like to sell some Western finished products to African markets, but they never consider Africa as an equal partner. But right now, when we look at the relations of Turkey or China or Russia, their relations with African countries are more balanced and on the partnership level. So these 3 actors, foreign actors, they are heavily investing in Africa, in every area, but their architecture, their behavior, and their uh, approach to Africa is very limited, is very different. We can see this in the Turkey-Africa relations. Turkey seeing African countries as an equal partner. So saying this slogan, usually a win-win slogan. China is also using the same slogan. Russia is also very active in the last 10 years after the Putin adopted a new policy towards Africa. So now the dynamic, the actors' relations with Africa is changing, and we can see it by our eyes.
There was also one more change that we saw from one of the major global powers. The outgoing United States President Joe Biden was in Angola recently to highlight U.S. backing of the Lobito corridor that would enable transport of precious metals and minerals from the Democratic Republic of Congo, Zambia, and Angola to Europe and the U.S. How do you see this sub-Saharan Africa push when we know this is the first time a sitting U.S. president has visited Angola?
Yes, the U.S. has an Africa policy, certain Africa policy, and usually seeing China and Russia as a dangerous threat to U.S. interest in Africa. Because, for example, when you look African politics, geopolitics, still the U.S. is located its biggest air base, military base in Djibouti. And when you look with more than 30 African countries, the U.S. has military cooperation agreements. So we cannot say the U.S. is not influential in Africa. Yes, still there is, of course, U.S. influences in Africa, but it is in the Western Bloc. So the Western Bloc's influence really it is diminishing, waning. When we look for example, security policy documents of the U.S., they often mention China and Russia as a threat to U.S. interest in African politics, in African geography. So they are now trying to rebuild their relation with Africa because they know Africa has very rich mineral sources, energy sources. As you mentioned, DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, for example, they need Congo's minerals for electrical car technology, for mobile telephones, for satellites, etc. So they need Africa, and Africa has now more options. They not depend on Western countries only. Now China, Russia, India, Asian countries, Turkey, and many others, they are building new relations with African countries, and geopolitics in Africa is rapidly changing.
Do you expect a change and a shift in U.S. policy and, if you will, Western policies towards Africa, especially when it comes to trade and these precious metals and rare minerals, when Donald Trump returns to the White House in January? And if so, how could that affect the relations of other foreign powers we mentioned throughout the show with African states?
When we look the first term of Donald Trump, the first term in Africa was actually not very highlighted, not very. It was not the priority of Trump. Africa was not first priority for Trump. Actually, the Israel normalization process was the first priority for the U.S. Because of that, the Russia actually pressured Sudan and Morocco for the normalization with Israel. So this was the main agenda of the first Trump period. So I'm not expecting too much difference. Probably in the second term, Trump will try to continue this agenda, seek more support for Israel, because Israel is in very very tough situation right now because committing suicide and committing genocide in Gaza need more support, more friends. So Trump will try to find new friends for Israel in Africa, but this will not be successful, I think, because now the Israel's position in the Middle East is became very unhumanly. For that, I'm not expecting too much shift in the U.S. policy in Africa. This will be similar to the first term, I think.
Dr. Serhat, thank you so much for joining us and giving your valuable insights on the issue. That is all we have for you in this edition of Headlines. Thank you for tuning in and do stay with ANewz.